Hello and welcome to the eighth installment of Cincy Rims Roll Call. I'm Adam Visnick, your host, and today we're once again diving deep into the risk and insurance management world. Today, let's unravel the journey, the challenges, and the victories that our next guest has encountered. Please join me in welcoming Rudy Jones. Rudy, welcome aboard.
Hey, Adam. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Great to have you. And without further ado, let's get started. Tell me a little bit about how you got into your career, how you got started.
Yeah, and I think in my experience, there's kind of two ways everybody gets involved in the insurance and risk management field. It's one you kind of fell into it by chance, and the other one you had a family member or somebody introduced you to it. And I'm in the latter part of that group. My dad is deeply immersed in the insurance and risk management field here in the Cincinnati area, and it played a pivotal role of me getting introduced to it. He persuaded me to study insurance and risk management in college, and that's what I did. I started my insurance journey back in 2018 as an insurance and risk management student at the University of Cincinnati. Um, my professional career kicked off back in 2021 as a Gallagher sales intern. Spent 2 summers gaining experience in the insurance and risk management field. One summer with Gallagher, the other with Riskversity. And then before or after that, just starting my full time role with Gallagher back in the summer of 22.
Amazing. And what a great place to land. Gallagher, after having spent your career, your academic career at UC and getting your degree there, and then coming out of there with a great job. I imagine it's going pretty well for you. And I was looking at your LinkedIn profile. Tell me, though, your current position, if I'm incorrect about it, is client executive at Gallagher. If that's still true, tell me a little bit about what that does on a daily basis in layman's terms.
Yeah. So being at Gallagher as a client executive, it's just another way of saying producers. What we like to call it is basically being in a sales role. So task day to day, I'm set with doing the outreach and the prospecting, and what my team likes to call people who first start out are meeting getters, right? Getting us in the door to different places to get opportunities. So on my day to day, that's pretty much what I do is do outreach to try to get prospective clients in the door, going out to prospective clients to get opportunities on the board for myself and my team and Gallagher to get some wins.
That's awesome to hear. Getting your boots on the ground and starting from the quote unquote bottom of such a big company is a great place to start. I'm sure they can teach you a ton. You'll learn a lot, but your father was instrumental in your getting into that world, it sounds like. Tell me a little bit more about how that dynamic, and by the way, Lawrence Jones was our fifth episode of Cincy Rims Roll Call, and he did a great job. Tell me a little bit more about how he got you involved and what that looked like for you.
Yeah, so my dad, obviously, you said he was on this as well. Been in the insurance industry since about 2015, and that's kind of the time where, for me, I was starting out high school, and what does next steps look like after high school ends? What is it that you want to do? And him just being so instrumental. I see the work he does day in and day out, and how hard he works and how much he enjoys working. Just me thinking, wow, I want to do something like that with my career. So when he started Riskversity, being in high school, not really sure what insurance was and what it did, and kind of just getting to see him do things day in and day out, really gave me some type of motivation to, hey, I think everybody at some point wants to kind of be like their dad growing up. And it was true to me. So he works with Gallagher very closely, and that's how I got connected with the people at Gallagher. And then when I did my internship, I was like, wow, this is something that I could really do and see myself doing for a living. And then the next summer, I didn't want to do another internship with Gallagher. I kind of wanted a different perspective. So I did work for him for a summer right before I graduated college. So yeah, it was great to see him do what he did, and he introduced me to it, and I love being in the industry now as well.
No, that's an awesome story. And a heartfelt moment too for
Yeah.
dad and son to both be in the same industry as well as interning with his company Riskversity. Tell me a little bit more about how internships, not just the one with your father, but how internships have helped you, and then how it helped you grow into your career as well as excel.
Yeah, and I think my experience with college to start off was a little bit different. COVID was happening the majority of my college tenure, so
Mhm.
Internships were a lot harder to come by with, either it being all virtual or a lot of companies just saying, hey, we're not going to do it this year or the year after. So it was great to be able to get into Gallagher when I did. I did it my junior year. But it was just, the experience, firsthand experience of getting to see, what, producers or salespeople do day in and day out. Really excited me. It's a lot of it was, coming in, working hard, working from, the ground up and doing, the dirty work per se. So just getting to see that and, seeing how, people in the company have developed who were interns at one point, and then, come out 5, 6 years down the line, really excelling in the industry is something that excited me. So getting that firsthand experience and really get to be immersed in, see what, producers and salespeople do in the insurance and risk management field, really excited me. So I would say, that was the great part of that, about that experience with internships.
Mhm. And that's a great story, Rudy. What was the big tipping point that led you to study specifically that major in the business world at UC in insurance and risk?
I would say that the tipping point for me, I came in as an insurance and risk management student just because, my dad persuaded me to do so. Not really sure if that was, something that I really wanted to do. I would say the first tipping point for me was, in my classes at UC. All I have to give all the credit to my professors there. To, for example, Bob Higgins, who was a former employee of Gallagher's, and then Anita Ingram, who has worked in the risk management department for quite some time at the University of Cincinnati. Just really getting to hear their stories and how they taught the curriculum, but not only that, just them staying engaged, making us engage, and really telling stories about real world examples and how they applied that to their career. Was the first tipping point, and then the summer going into my junior year, getting that experience with Gallagher, like I said before, was just instrumental of me being able to realize this is something that I could really see a future with in my career.
And that's awesome. And thanks for mentioning the specific people that you learn under, because those people are integral to success. And we've talked about with a lot of the other Cincy Rims roll call interviewees, there's always one or two, maybe even a half dozen people that have helped them along the way. Nobody's really a safe, self-made person. And it always takes a team. And that's kind of the point of this association, as well as the interviews, to help people along with their career. And you're illuminating a lot of things that people at the start of their career have also utilized. It's a unique situation for you, but it's always that person or people that help along the way. And obviously wishing you the best of successes. Where have you, though, so far, where have you hit maybe some obstacles? And if what are those obstacles standing your way, those little maybe tiny setbacks or things that you need to combat or defeat? What are those, and how you go about defeating those?
Yeah, I think some of the obstacles just being in this industry to start off with. There's no hiding that I'm young and inexperienced, right? And I think there's a lot, or there's not a lot of things that can change the years in the chair, right? So someone who has been in the business for 20 plus years has experienced a lot more than me. Seen a lot more things than I have. Probably knows policy language a little bit better than I do, the nuances of insurance policies, and that's not something that's going to change. But just kind of really deflecting those things of being young and inexperienced and trying to make those kind of my strengths almost. Starting out, being young, you're hungry, you're determined to make a name for yourself. You're willing to get your hands dirty, do the dirty work. So I would say it's just that mindset of being young and hungry is kind of made me overcome some of those obstacles. And then as well, being young and not being married and having a family, there are some perks to that, right? So I don't have to make sure I'm done at 5 o'clock because I have to pick the kids up from grandma's house, or help around the house, or things of that nature. So being able to be flexible with my schedule, if I have to work long hours, working from to 7 o'clock, or having to pick up the computer for a few hours on the weekend and log in to do some work. I think the obstacle of being young is hard, but using that to my advantage, and making it a strength.
Yeah, I love that, because years in the chair, I don't think I've heard it phrased quite as succinct as that. Years in the chair, and the experience that comes along with having worked 20, 30 years in the field is a perk. Certainly, you can learn those nuances, ins and outs, and as you mentioned, the policy language. But from your standpoint, you can put those hours in that we gray hairs can't. We do have to pick up the kids from grandma or daycare, et cetera, and we can't stay well after time. We got to spend time with our kids. So you get to put those years in the chair in a little bit quicker fashion. You might be able to put more hours in than your colleagues, and that's okay. You have to learn a lot of things, and that's awesome. So you mentioned great obstacles and how you go about defeating them. The inexperience that you may have had will easily be changed as you put time in. So I appreciate that. That's a great answer. And where that you're now as a client executive at Gallagher, you're there in that space. Where do you want to go, and what opportunities does Gallagher have for you? It sounds like they have plenty because they're such a big company. Where do you want to go next with that?
Yeah, and everybody starts off as a producer associate, client executive, and the role from that is from or the goal from being in that position is to kind of be an area vice president where you're kind of the expert in whatever industry or niche that you want to be focusing on. So the next step with that is not be having to do the grunt work or the outreach, and having somebody younger like as myself doing that, and bringing me along on the opportunities that they get because I'm a subject matter expert in some space. And then from that, there's more development to come from those places. Some people enjoy being in that space, in that role, or people want to be managing directors of a practice group, or you're coming on the really big meetings where we have the Fortune 500 companies coming in, and you focus, and maybe you just focus with higher education, and there's an opportunity that comes about, and you're called in because the University of Cincinnati wants to work with Gallagher, and you're the expert in the higher education space. So I would say I see myself within the next 4 or 5 years being in that area, that VP position, where I'm kind of a subject matter expert in some type of industry or niche, and then maybe 10 to 15 years down the road, it's being that managing director who is focused primarily in that spot, and is needed for the heavy lifting, so to say.
Yeah. And it's great to hear that you want to be fully involved in the space that you're in and you're diving headfirst into it. What would you say what kind of advice would you give to those that had been in your shoes a couple of years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, that are just now maybe entering college, don't really yet see this on their radar as an option? Maybe they didn't have a dad that even knew about this kind of thing, and it's all new, but there's plenty of opportunities. We spoke yesterday or recently with Kyle White, who mentioned the generational gap. There's a lot of people that are retiring now, and there's going to be plenty of jobs open in this space. So for you, what advice might you give to those where you were in your space a couple of years ago? What kind of advice would you give to those people that are in that space now?
Yeah, and that's probably one of my favorite things is I'm super involved with the University of Cincinnati, being an alum there. I try to go back as much as possible, and do those type of things, and talk to the students who are freshmen or even in high school. And the one thing I would say, this industry is unique, and it's not the most glamorous. I know a lot of people coming in like, oh, I want to be in marketing, or I want to be in this, but there are a lot of spaces. To mention what Kyle said, there are a lot of people retiring. There's a lot of openings in the insurance industry coming up. So I would just say, advice is, give it a shot. There's a lot of great opportunities, definitely within Cincinnati, or with around the country in the insurance field. So I would just say, I love it, and there's a lot of people in this industry that do love it. So give it a shot, and really hone in on what you want to do, because the industry is great.
That's great to hear too. And the industry is great. We've interviewed a half dozen people, seven now, and you'll be number eight, and they all come from different worlds, and they kind of uniquely navigated their path into this space. And there's plenty of ways to get into the space. You don't even have to start out on it, but now we've interviewed a couple of people that have had degrees specifically in this world. So it's great to hear that there's a full gamut of ways to get in, and there's plenty of opportunities out there, and plenty of big companies available that want to hire you. So that's awesome to hear.
I was gonna say one other thing is, definitely if you're at the University of Cincinnati and you're interested, take one of Bob Higgins' classes. He might make you fall in love with it.
We'll go ahead and tag Bob in that and shout out to
Yeah.
him in LinkedIn. I think he'll be flattered to hear from you about it. It's always good to give kudos to the mentors. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. All right. You are a Cincinnati native, if I'm correct on that, right, Rudy?
Yep. Born and raised here.
Born and raised. Love to hear it as well. And now's the time for the softball side of the question. Where it's ask some easy questions of you. It's called Cincy Rims Roll Call. We'll ask a few questions about people that are native to Cincinnati, not just people from outside the world. We have a bit of a mixture of both. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready.
All right. First things first, Gold Star or Skyline Chili?
I am gonna get some hate here. I knew this question was probably coming. I'm not a big chili person. It's
Mhm.
just not really for me. And I usually get slack from my friends when I say that when they want to go to. It's usually Skyline late at night,
Mhm.
and I'm like, well, I guess I'll go. So I would say I've had more experience being at Skyline, so I would pick Skyline over Gold Star.
Okay. And what high school did you go to?
Yeah, so I say Cincinnati, but Greater Cincinnati, and from a little bit further up north. I graduated from Fairfield High School.
Fairfield High School. Awesome. That's my wife went there back in the day. A lot of good athletes from there as well. I played against quite a few of them. Still a good school. Love it.
Yeah,
Right. Reds, Bengals, or SC Cincinnati?
that is a good one. The FC Cincinnati has been on a tear as of late.
Mhm.
When they first started off playing their games at Nippert, I got to see a decent amount of those there. So I kind of developed being a fan of them in that regard. Growing up, went to Reds games all the time, but I would say I grew up playing football. I have season tickets for the Bengals, so I would say the Bengals are my number one Cincinnati team.
Bengals. And at the time that we're interviewing today and filming this, they're at 6-6, and our Jake Browning just came off of a great game beating the Jaguars at Jacksonville. So FC, or I'm sorry, Bengals are on a tear. Hopefully they can make the playoffs.
Yeah, hopefully when people are seeing this, we maybe won a game or two more from then.
Absolutely. Anything else that you want to throw out there, Rudy? It's been an absolute pleasure having you on and a great perspective for this interview. Anything that you want to say to our audience today?
No, well, besides Adam, I would just want to say thank you for having me, and for any maybe college kids out there watching, give insurance and risk management a shot. It's a great industry, and I'm sure you'll have a great career in it.
Rudy, it's been a pleasure having you on as our guest at Cincy Rims Roll Call. I'm Adam Visick. Thanks for allowing me to be your host. Catch you next time.